And that music of your life kind of makes it sound like it's time for helping seniors of Brevard. Let's get things underway as we introduce to you the co-host of the show and the executive director of helping seniors of Brevard. That is none other than Kerry Fink. Good afternoon, Kerry.
Hey, John Harper. It's always a pleasure to be on the radio every Wednesday, gathering around the radio at lunchtime on 90.3 FM, WEJF, and also welcome to those who are listening online, WEJF.net, and those who will catch this as podcast following the broadcast. Every place you get a podcast. It could be any place from Apple iTunes to iHeartRadio to Hey Alexa, Play Helping Seniors, all those good things. And this is kind of a big day in helping seniors history. We're so excited. So we've got a lot of stuff to cover. We have a very special guest in the studio, Laura McCarthy with Brevard Recovery Fest. But just before we get into the main part of our conversation about that, let me introduce another great co-host in the helping seniors world. She is the owner of Seniors Helping Seniors, which we were just talking about the lovely name confusion that always happens there. I'm talking about none other than Jennifer Barton. How are you today, Jennifer?
I am wonderful, Kerry. Always good to be here.
And we're going to unpack a little bit that difference between helping seniors and seniors helping seniors, because everybody asks that. But let me first start with the headline. This afternoon, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. We're so excited because we are having our what, Jennifer?
Our grand opening. Yay!
Yes, you've organized that the Palm Bay Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Palm Bay Chamber of Commerce, is coming out to our, really, I would call them little digs, but they're not so little. It's actually 5,600 square feet that Dr. Delegdish and the Omni Healthcare Group has made available to us in their Omni Healthcare Professional Tower. It's right there on the medical campus there in Melbourne, right 1344 South Apollo Drive. I'll give you a minute to grab a pencil and write down that address again. But we're on the second floor. It's actually Suite 2C. You'll find some signage. I think we were all excited because maybe some signs actually showed up. So we're going to do our best to get those on the walls. We're kind of billing this as still a little bit under construction. Everything is freshly painted. So we don't have everything 100% in order, but we feel like we're close enough. And we've actually been in the space now for a number of months already serving seniors there, but we're really inching towards getting it really where we want to have it. So again, that address is 1344 South Apollo Drive. I think it's going to be a fantastic afternoon, Jennifer.
Oh, I think it is. I think we're going to have a great turnout. The whole team has been working hard at getting the offices ready and making pretty so that we can welcome everyone this afternoon. There will be food and beverages and a lot of great information. So we're excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice time. This has been a vision of our president and founder, Joe Steckler, literally since the day that he started out helping seniors, which goes all the way back to 2011. For those of you that don't know Joe, I can't imagine anybody doesn't know Joe. If you've picked up a newspaper in this area, he is like the leading advocate for seniors because he's always writing columns in everything from Hometown News to Senior Scene Magazine to The Tattler down in Barefoot Bay to Aldea Today. He's always a champion for seniors, but his last command in the Navy was he ran the government's, the Navy's retirement home there. And so when he and his lovely wife, Terry, retired to Satellite Beach, Joe couldn't stay retired. So he gets involved with the Brevard Alzheimer's, gets all that going, built up Joe's Clubs, which is 3 of them around the county providing adult daycare, which to this day are named after him and the efforts to get those going. And then when Joe retired from that, he couldn't stay retired. And he says, Kerry, there's more work that needs to be done for seniors. So he creates Helping Seniors. And since that day, we've been operating now into our 13th year with the Senior Information Helpline. It's that free call to 321-473-7770. And beyond that, then, as you know, we do an outreach to educate seniors. We call it, Joe calls it making an aging plan. We euphemistically and smilingly call it getting your ducks in a row. And so we're always trying to let people know of things that will be helpful to them as they navigate senior years. And then we advocate for seniors at every chance we can with governments, businesses, and just making sure that we're doing the best job that we can to make things as well as possible for every senior who calls Brevard County home. And we are 100% local nonprofit to Brevard County. So that's us. But then, Jennifer, as we talk about, there's always confusion. People call Seniors Helping Seniors and think they're calling us. And a lot of times we get calls that are meant for you because the names are similar. But talk about Seniors Helping Seniors for a minute. And you guys hire seniors to go into seniors' homes and help.
We do. So Helping Seniors is the nonprofit, but Seniors Helping Seniors, we are a home care company that actually really does hire seniors to go out and help seniors. So it works really well. We're a homemaker companion, so a lot of times we're the first people into the house. So we are have very low minimum, very flexible, so that we're meeting the needs of the seniors that. They need a little help with transportation, maybe some light housekeeping, meal preparation, companionship, maybe for someone who has dementia. And we do that with another senior. So it's a very comfortable fit. It's a very safe person coming in. We love it. We've been doing it for 12 years now. And excited to keep going another 12.
Yeah, and you guys not only are a great resource for families who need help at home, but I love the fact that you guys are also great employers of seniors who want to give back. And I love how you often explain it. You say you look for the person with the heart of a volunteer who doesn't mind accepting a paycheck.
Exactly. They're there because they want to be there, not because they have to be there. And we really do try to match interests. So, our theory is if the caregiver is having a great time, then we know that the clients are getting a great service and the whole thing works. Yeah. We are looking for someone still down in Melbourne Beach. If anyone down in Melbourne Beach is listening, we would love to have someone down there helping us.
And if they're interested either in getting help at home or maybe seeing about employment opportunities with seniors, helping seniors, how do they reach you?
I can be reached at 321-722-2999.
And if you would like to meet the owner and the team at Seniors Helping Seniors, you can come to their headquarters, which happens to be, we're all in the same place, the Senior Resource Center of Brevard that I was talking about at the open of the show, because we're having this open house this afternoon, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. with the ribbon cutting. So again, that address, 1344 South Apollo Drive, you'll find us all being festive on the second floor there. And so with that, let's see if we could turn our attention to, I was really excited about this, and we're going to participate this. This is coming up. This is a date you want to get a pencil and jot down on your calendar. It's Saturday, September 9th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Wickham Park. And this is so important. I was speaking with Laura McCarthy, who is our guest today. Hi, Laura. How are you? Thank you for being with us. I got your connection through a ministry friend of ours named Gina Lindquist, who has a ministry called Passion Ministries, and she was telling me that she's involved in this. I said, "What is Brevard Recovery Fest?" And she started explaining to me. I said, "Oh my goodness, this is so important because it's an area that we all need a lot more education with, and anyone who has been connected either themselves or through a family that's had to go through things connected to addiction and things like that, this is just such an important concept. How did this happen, or this is the second annual, and so I was asking, how did the idea for all this come together? It was a huge success.
Well, it's very exciting, kind of like Joe, birthing an idea from years ago and then seeing it come to fruition. I started my own personal recovery in 1985, and I knew in 1985 that I wanted to work with addicts, and I wanted to give back, and I wanted to help. I had come out of this horrific addiction and had hit bottom and had found recovery and help and support. And so I remember in early recovery, my sponsors were like, "No, you need to get well first, and so years went on, and I actually got connected. Gina also works at Hope Ministries. Right. And when I moved here years ago, I had been praying, God, if you want me in this business. I got busy getting married and raising children. And then my daughter looked at me one day and I said, "Let's go surfing." She said, "Mom, you need to get a life." And I took that as I got kicked out of the nest. So I ended up going after my passion, which was I want to work with addicts. Wow. That desire had still been on my heart. But I had told God, listen, I can't drive an hour. This was before the internet and all the online learning.
Right.
You know, if you have a class for me, it's got to be within 5 miles of my home. I just can't do this hour-long drive. And lo and behold, Hope Ministries was right around the corner, 4 miles from my house.
Wow.
And Hope Ministries was started by Dick Phelps, who was a longtime member of Recovery Community who wanted to build this parachurch organization. And Dick Phelps took me under his wing, and Lou Jervis down there, and I started doing the Net Institute classes, and eventually ended up being the first person out of that school to go to Circles of Care and get an internship for her CAP. And that was my goal, to work on becoming a certified addictions professional. And that door opened, and I was there for 10 and a half years. Before some health issues really took me out of that industry. And we know God always has a bigger plan. At the time, I was like, but God, you really need me there? And he said, no, have you forgotten? I can be anywhere. I don't need you there. But little did I know at that time that he had a bigger plan for me. Yeah. And the bigger plan was I started getting involved with the local opioid task force. So in Brevard County, we have an opioid misuse task force that meets and had 4 subcommittees that met under the Prevention Coalition here in Brevard County. And I started going to these meetings, and next thing I know, I ended up being the chair of the Treatment and Recovery Subcommittee. Wow. And we had another county, Marion County, came over to our subcommittee meeting and said, we don't know what's wrong with you people in Brevard. We've had a recovery fest in Ocala now for 4 years. What's wrong with you guys? We're going to challenge you. You need to have a recovery fest. And the committee looked at me and said, yeah, we want to do a recovery fest.
Love it.
So last year was our inaugural event. We did it under the Brevard Prevention Coalition nonprofit umbrella. And it was a surprise to all of us that nearly 1,500 people came out. And this was during Ian. So a lot of people were preparing for a hurricane. So we know that crowd could have even been bigger. Right. We had food provided by Squid Lips and a number of food trucks. And then we had over 100 vendors and sponsors come together and give out valuable information for mental health and addictions, for recovery, as well as treatment, support, and it was just mind-blowing. We had inflatable rides and games. We had the sheriff department there with their K9 unit and the teen driving simulators. This year, I've got Wings of Grace coming with their flight simulators, which we're very excited about. Our media sponsor is Z88 Radio. They're going to be there on site doing giveaways. We have literally giveaways from almost every organization in town happening every hour on the hour, so get a raffle ticket for free. And everything is free. This is a free family fun day. And we're anticipating, again, a couple thousand people coming out. We don't do an Eventbrite event, so we are not tracking who's coming. I've been challenged that maybe I want to add that this next year, but we did become our own nonprofit this last December. In fact, I filed the nonprofit status on November 14th, and everybody said, oh, it'll take you months to get it. Literally within 30 days, I had the IRS determination letter that we are a 501c3 charitable organization in Brevard County, and we are by the community, for the community, collaborating to bring all of these resources together to help people overcome their addictions and struggles with mental health and substance use disorders. It's like, that's the feeling exactly. One big God wink, right?
Absolutely. No, it's so important what you guys do. And I don't think this gets talked about enough. We see sometimes national things about fentanyl crisis and things like that, but I don't know. And this is something that touches most families. I mean, Jennifer, you're what the work that you've done, not only yourself, but she's also does a lot of work with the sheriff's department through Brevard County Triad, and so you're pretty familiar with a lot of these issues as well. I guess you see a lot of this just in just the broad spectrum out there as well.
You know, through Triad and listening to Sheriff Ivey speak, I know that fentanyl is an issue right here in Brevard County. It's not somewhere else. It's here.
Oh, yes. We were number 1 per capita in the Florida state for deaths from fentanyl. We have now reduced that to number 5 in the state per capita, but that's still very, very high when you think about all the other communities. I mean, we're outbeating Miami-Dade County in deaths from fentanyl. We just had our Central Florida Fentanyl Summit last Monday. And we are changing the language with the help of Susie Pereira at the Blue Plaid Society. You can go to blueplaid.org and look at her work, changing the language from overdose to poisoning, because these people aren't using to a point of overdosing, they are literally getting something they don't know they're getting.
Right.
And they are
Didn't
being
expect.
poisoned instantly and dying. And it's epidemic in our nation. It has been for quite a while. Of course, COVID made it even worse. We saw increases of 136% of our alcoholism deaths. We need to remember also that alcohol is a huge problem. In fact, our largest population of persons getting HIV/AIDS is in our 55 and older communities,
Wow.
believe it or not.
Wow.
Why? People are bored. They're looking to have fun. They start partying. They add alcohol. They add sex. And next thing you know, they've ended up with a disease that, thank God, is treatable today, but still can be life-threatening. One of the really cool success stories, in fact, I just heard, was a woman who came last year. She had been in long-term recovery from heroin addiction for 25 years and had started feeling really, really tired and exhausted and didn't know why. We have Curative Care there who brings their mobile HIV hepatitis C testing unit, and testing is free. She got a hepatitis C test and HIV test. She came back positive for hepatitis C last year, went through the treatment, which is so wonderful these days compared to what it was in the old days with interferon. Now it's so much easier to heal from hepatitis C, and she is now disease-free this
thank
year,
God.
coming to the fest again. That's a huge success story, as well as a number of people who told us that they had been searching in the county for years for services. They found the services that they'd been seeking that they didn't even know existed. Like, you guys, I'm so excited because I'm getting ready. My husband's turning 65 this next month, and you know what? I need seniors helping seniors, and I need helping seniors of Brevard. I think Resource Center, I'm in. Like, I've been getting all the Medicare stuff thrown at, and fortunately he's still employed, so we don't have to do that yet. But I'm thinking, how do you maneuver through this? Well, that's how people feel with addictions. When they have a family member that's struggling with addictions or mental health, how do we maneuver through this? So we took that Treatment and Recovery Subcommittee. We made it the Treatment and Recovery Consortium, and we literally meet every month, the second Tuesday of every month. We meet and we talk about bringing these resources to the county. So we're very active. We use right now 211 Brevard. If anyone is struggling, to please reach out to 211 Brevard. You can actually text in to 898-211, the word opioid, and what'll pop up is a list of questions that will ask you, are you looking for detox? Are you looking for treatment? And various resources will become available to you. And that's been one of our campaigns, is getting 211, we've been working for 4 years. One of our action items was to get 211 in collaboration with us so that we can provide information and resources to the community with a simple phone call.
Yeah, that's so important. We talk a lot. Nancy Deerdorf, who is our operations director, and she's 33 years by now, registered nurse experience and background and all of that. And she has this expression. She goes, "How do you know what you don't know?" And so oftentimes when people are calling the Senior Information Helpline, they're starting on some kind of a journey. They may call in with one thing and find out at the end of the conversation that there's several different issues that need to be addressed. And so what you're talking about is so important because, I'm always amazed. We're a tiny little nonprofit organization in the big scheme of things, but I'm always surprised at how effective we're able to be because when you know where to go when somebody presents, well, like, here's what I'm up against, it's amazing. There are a lot of services, but if you don't know that they exist, it's of no value to you in the situation that you're facing. And that's what I think is so important about Brevard Recovery Fest. Can you explain, like, who should come out to this? Like, what would be the point for the day besides having a great time and picking up a lot of information? Who should make plans to be out there that day?
Anybody and everybody.
Okay.
It is a free, family-friendly event. So we want to encourage anyone in the community, whether you've had mental health issues. We know, in fact, I recently picked up a donation from Carroll Distributing, and the sales manager came out, and he looked at me and he said, "Laura, I don't know anybody that hasn't had somebody in their family or circle of friends that hasn't been impacted by addiction or mental health. He said, we will be supporting this event for the lifetime of this event. Whatever you need, please reach out to us.
Wonderful.
And that's kind of the reality of this. If 1 in 10 become addicted, the other 9 are impacted.
Sure.
It has a ripple effect that can make everyone sick. And we use the language of sick getting well, not bad getting good.
Right.
I can tell you, I'll be standing next to the sheriff, and we are criminals. I have been a criminal, okay? But I've moved from being a criminal to a community leader and a professional.
Absolutely.
I am a former licensed mental health counselor and a master certified addictions professional. I am a subject matter expert in the area of addictions and trauma, and I do speak often in our community and around, just giving away freely what was so freely given to me in so many ways. But understanding that when our brain has been hijacked by the chemical, it's not I'm making poor choices, it's that my frontal lobe is completely shut down and I'm not able to make choices.
Right.
I am being driven by a craving that's beyond mental control, that takes me places I swore I'd never go, do stuff I swore I'd never do, and hang out with people I swore I'd never hang out with. And that was my reality when I was in my disease. I started chemicals at the age of 11.
Oh, my goodness.
I was even thinking, if we throw sugar in there, which is 8 times more powerful than crack cocaine, and we know crack cocaine increases the dopamine in your brain thousands of times normal, or hundreds of times, 750 times normal, right? You eat a meal, you increase your dopamine, which is your pleasure chemical, 100 maybe 150, right? But crack cocaine increases at 750 times normal.
Wow.
That is the thing they're chasing. Their brain is chasing that dopamine response. Well, what happens over time, because it's progressive in nature, is what used to work for me at this level, now I need more, right? Well, sugar is 8 times more powerful than crack cocaine. All right. So I would say my first addiction was literally K-Rose syrup on my French toast when I was 5.
Sure.
And progressing its way to, nicotine, and then alcohol, and then marijuana, and then cocaine. And it just kept progressing to the point where catastrophic events happened in our life. I was sentenced to a year in the state penitentiary in Colorado as a habitual offender with multiple DUIs. And you would think, wow, you didn't learn your lesson from your father. My father had actually committed vehicular homicide at the age of 21 years old and killed the passenger of his vehicle, which he never recovered from ever. And he literally drank himself to death at the age of 61 years old. It's a horrible disease. It's not that my dad was a bad person, nor was he stupid. In fact, he had the IQ of a genius. He had a horrible disease that needed to be treated. And our message today is this disease is treatable. No one needs to die of it. We do recover. I stand here before you today, sitting in this chair with 38 years of continuous recovery. And it is recovery on a daily basis. I'm not done. There's no done button on this. There are things that I do on a daily basis to ensure that my disease stays in check. I know today that if I pick up just one drink, one line, one toke, one smoke, whatever it is, I will be doing a lot more because my brain reacts to that chemical different.
Everything you're saying, I was thinking about this, talking about this. Our pastor has this expression, it doesn't matter where you start, it does matter where you finish. And what's good about what you're talking about today is the fact that there is hope for people that are maybe trying to figure out what to do in their case. Maybe they feel like, they're hitting a rock bottom, or maybe they're very concerned about somebody in their family who is in that situation, and are maybe even confused about how to approach it, or how do I work this, or what's the right step. And I think that's probably something that you'll have resources for at the Brevard Recovery Fest. Is that
Oh, absolutely. Correct? I've got over 97 vendors with tents and the pavilion being set up to hand out valuable information on recovery resources, as well as treatment resources available in the county. Of course, one of the newest programs being launched in the county right now through Circles of Care and the Florida Department of Health is our CORE program, which is huge. Again, we know that fentanyl is killing people. In the old days, we would do drugs and we'd end up in the hospital, right? Now, if a kid wants to experiment with a drug, it kills them. All right, so we're in a completely different era when it comes to substance use disorders. And even, the stories that I hear, it's so tragic. And I hear many, many stories. First-timers that have never ever touch a drug just wanted to try one, and they die.
Yeah.
So we have a message that we need to get out there. We will be doing Narcan distribution at this event. They'll have a couple of many organizations will be handing out Narcan and brief instruction on how to use it, because it does save lives. It's not enabling. It is saving lives, because you never know when that person is going to come around. And I can't tell you how many testimonies we've heard of young people who have literally died, been brought back through Narcan, and that was the life-changing event that brought them into recovery or treatment.
Yeah. We're talking with Laura McCarthy, who's the executive director of Brevard Recovery Fest. It's happening Saturday, September 9th, 2023 at Wickham Park, brevardrecoveryfest.org. We're going to be back with the second half of the Helping Seniors radio show, and our guests, Laura and Jennifer Barton with Seniors Helping Seniors. See you in just a minute.
12:33 in the afternoon on this Wednesday. Helping Seniors of Brevard is what you're listening to. Let's get back to more of this very interesting program for today. Here's your host and the executive director of Helping Seniors of Brevard, Kerry Fink.
Hey, John Harper, thank you again, and welcome back for the second half of Helping Seniors Radio every Wednesday lunchtime right here on 90.3 FM, WEJF. And hello again if you're listening online, WEJF.net. And if you're continuing along on the podcast, well, keep listening. We got lots of good stuff for you. You know, our guest today, we're celebrating the Brevard Recovery Fest. I want to give you a minute to grab a pencil, because we're going to start talking about some dates and things. Not only about this, but later in the show, we're going to talk about some important dates coming up in the Helping Seniors world as well. So you're probably going to want to keep a couple of notes as we go along. But the date that I'm going to ask you to jot down right now is Saturday, September 9th, 2023. So it's just a couple of weeks out now, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and it's taking place at Wickham Park right there in Melbourne, Florida. And we're so fortunate to have with us as our special guest today none other than Laura McCarthy, who is the executive director of the Brevard Recovery Fest, and also in our studio, longtime friend. Like, my goodness, you've been a board member of the Helping Seniors group, and we're always joking that everybody gets our names confused. We're talking about Jennifer Barton, who has a company called Seniors Helping Seniors of Brevard.
We're really just Seniors Helping Seniors. I think we've got of Brevard on Facebook just to designate us from the other Seniors Helping Seniors here in Florida.
Okay, yeah, right, because you're part of a big group that has done this literally globally. I mean, it's like you guys have found a good way of helping seniors by hiring seniors to provide help in the home.
Yes, we actually have franchises over in England and one in Malaysia. So I keep saying that we have to go over to England, and we can call it a business trip.
Yeah, well, yeah, true. That's true. And then also, I think the other half of it, though, is that people always think of Helping Seniors because we're the nonprofit, and then you guys are the ones that hire seniors to provide services. You brought up an interesting point as we're talking about addiction and recovery during the mid-show break. And I guess one of the things that was a little interesting was that you said, one of the questions that comes up is like, how does it happen? And talk a little bit about that when, maybe it's somebody in your family who is concerned about, maybe it's a friend or something else. It's like there was a whole story that you were going into. But I mean, that seems like a big part of it too, Jennifer.
Oh, absolutely. What we were off the air, we were talking on break about I have two boys, and one of my son's friends was going through recovery and was asked to write letters to him while the friend was away. And then we had the talk about, okay, well, when he gets back, that's kind of got to be an odd position for him to be in when he comes back, and how, can you as a friend support him? And I think something like the Recovery Fest would be a great opportunity for us, maybe as people, as friends, or family members who love someone who's going through this, to be able to understand and get more information so that we can better help our friends and our loved ones, walk that journey.
Yes, absolutely. You will be able to find those people. I think what's really exciting, as a retired licensed mental health counselor and a master's certified addictions professional, one of the first things we would always talk about is level of care, right? Mm-hmm. So the first level of care is literally getting them connected with a recovery community. Mm-hmm. So when you think of recovery communities, you think of things like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. That's for Alcoholics Anonymous is for people struggling with an alcohol problem. Narcotics Anonymous for people struggling with a drug problem, right? There's all sorts of anonymous programs out there. We've got Al-Anon family groups for family members or friends that struggle with alcohol problems. We've got Nar-Anon in the county, which is family members struggling with sons, daughters, husbands, wives that are struggling with a drug addiction, right? Then you've got your churches as well. You've got Hope Ministries that offers services, and they've got sexual addiction support groups. Many churches, like Quest 180, Church at Vieira, offers a recovery support. We've launched Recovery Church Space Coast in Palm Bay that meets at Life Point Church, which is right next to Harley Davidson, every Monday night from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. There's also Celebrate Recovery in many churches, and there's also Smart Recovery. So in this county, we have a lot of recovery support organizations. And we say, go get in a community of people, because one of the things with addiction is you feel so much shame. There's so much shame around what I've done, where I've been, if you knew what I'd done. But what's cool about recovery support communities is these people know they've been there, done that. So they're not looking down on you. They are there to be with you and walk you through this journey of recovery. If the recovery support's not working for you, then you go to a higher level of care, which would be like an intensive outpatient program where maybe you do more educational focused, more processing type groups. They meet maybe 3 or 4 times a week. It's more intensive. And then of course you've got PHP, partial hospitalization, or daily intensive outpatient, which would be like a Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. And then, of course, the highest level of care is our hospitalization and residential treatment, which that's where you go inpatient. And of course, we have a number of faith-based organizations like Dunklin down in Okeechobee that has an 11-month or 12-month program where you actually go residential for a long period of time. The average we know is 28 days to 60 days inpatient residential treatment, but that's what we call the highest level of care. There are people like myself who came into the 12-step rooms, embraced the 12 steps, had a vital spiritual experience, and never had to go to substance use treatment. Now, I will tell you that when you clean up an addict, get the chemical out of their system, chances are you've got a lot of codependency sitting there. Sure. So I did need to seek further treatment for that. And of course, then we've got trauma sitting underneath the deck as well. I'm a trauma survivor, and I wrote my book, Mess to Majestic, which is a true story that takes you partially through my memoir, but it also takes you through clinical and biblical insights for healing trauma, shame, and addictions. And I talk about the nature of the brain and what happens to the brain in addictions, which I think every parent can use as a resource. I get that feedback a lot. I need my child to understand that it's the brain's response to a chemical that creates addiction. Trauma doesn't create addiction. It will fuel it, doesn't cause it, right? Peer pressure doesn't cause it, may fuel it. But it's my brain's reaction to the chemical or to the behavioral, because we have this thing called behavioral addictions. One thing that's epidemic right now is our porn addiction. And, of course, what is known as electronic crack, cell phone addiction, social media addiction. These are all things that need to be treated, because once the brain gets fired up into the pleasure center, there is no frontal lobe. It's going to operate out of that craving for more. And 1 in 10 get it. That means the other 9 are watching it. And usually the other 9 are busy trying to control the addiction and the addict. Whereas the addict is obsessed with their chemical or their behavior, the family member or friend is obsessed with the addict. All of that is a symptom of the disease. And all of that is treatable. And thank you for mentioning hope, because my call since September 18th, 1988, is to restore hope to the hopeless.
You know, that's so important what you just said. We're talking with Laura McCarthy, who's the executive director of Brevard Recovery Fest. It's a big thing that's happening Saturday, September 9th. Make sure you get it on your calendar. It's a free, family-friendly event, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. right there at Wickham Park. I know it's going to be a glorious day. It's just going to be a good time. We, as Helping Seniors, are proud to play a role in that. We're going to be out there with information about us as a nonprofit. And Jennifer, I just think the conversation, talking with also Jennifer Barton with Seniors Helping Seniors, who is actually also on our volunteer board of directors for our nonprofit organization, but I just think this is such an important thing, because we were talking during the break that one of the highest statistics, about this HIV/AIDS thing is among seniors 55 plus. I mean, apparently this is like everywhere, right?
Unfortunately it is. And I was so glad that you did mention that earlier in the broadcast because, I think our perception is that as people age, when we think of seniors, we don't think of addiction. That's just not something that we picture. And unfortunately, that's just not true. Just because we've turned 70 or 80 doesn't mean that the addiction that we've had our whole lives miraculously disappears.
Right.
We've worked with several clients who have had alcohol addictions. And it's hard. It's hard on the person. It's hard on the family. It's hard on our caregivers. So it's not something that we can kind of sweep under the rug.
Right.
It is there, it is present, and having these valuable resources is really helpful, no matter what age someone is.
Yeah, and I think one of the most important parts of what Laura was talking to us about as we're talking about this upcoming Brevard Recovery Fest, again, Saturday, September 9th, 10 to 2, in the middle, beautiful Saturday afternoon there at Wickham Park, is the fact that for a lot of people, it's like you mentioned, one person may be affected, may be the person that's battling this, fighting this challenge themselves, but it really does impact everybody that's, whether it be friend or family. Because I know a lot of times we'll stand on the outside and see self-destructive behavior and say, like, this cannot end well if something doesn't happen. And yet most of us don't really even have a clue how to begin to interact or try to make some sort of a positive difference in that.
Well, it's interesting that you'd mentioned that because I was telling you earlier during our break about our intervention training. So we are trying to equip as many individuals as possible in Brevard County to do our national intervention training. And you don't have to have any experience at all. You can just come to the training. We're actually doing one
wow.
October 3rd up in Rockledge. I do have a few seats left for that, but we bring up a woman, a team, Scott and Karen from One Brother, One Sister and ATC Partners. They come up and they do an intervention training. It's very reasonable in price, but it teaches you a lot about how you can intervene in the life of someone. In fact, last night, it's interesting, I got a call randomly from someone who's got a drinking problem, and they had seen our sign out in somebody's yard and called the number on our website and reached out for help. And we were able to direct them, step by step, here are the steps that you can take to get well. We do need to keep in mind that you cannot die from heroin or fentanyl withdrawal. It'll be very unpleasant, very uncomfortable. Of course, we have medication-assisted treatment that can help you with that, detoxes. But I do want to shout out that alcohol withdrawal can kill you. There's a lot of wives out there, and I had a 68-year-old wife telling her husband just to stop drinking. And I want to tell you, if you've had someone who's been doing daily drinking for a number of years and you tell that person to stop drinking, they can go into delirium tremens and die.
Wow.
Alcohol withdrawal is the one withdrawal that can be fatal. So it's very important that they get connected with detox services. By the way, we just had a brand new detox open up in the north part of the county. Palm Point Behavioral Health just opened up their detox center. We're very excited about that because in the county, we've only had the one at Circles of Care. Of course, there are medical doctors that can help you, that are addictions doctors that can help you do a medical detox as well. So there are resources out there. You don't need to suffer and you don't need to die, for sure.
Wow. It just really brings to mind, Jennifer, as I'm listening to Laura talk about this, it really just brings to mind what you don't know can hurt you. That's a saying that we talk about a lot as we're offering advice to seniors and their families. It happens all the time. Like if we talk about people getting their paperwork the right way in terms of what any of our elder law attorneys who are connected with us might say, or we hear the same if we sit down and we talk with some of the Medicare experts. It's like what you don't know really can hurt you, and here we're hearing things that are so important that we need to know that we don't typically know, Jennifer.
Absolutely. And it is one of those things, maybe you're a lucky one that has never been touched by any of this. Maybe you've not had a loved one or a friend go through this, but it just takes that one.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when you get to that point, oh my gosh, what do I do? It's a panic moment. Whether we're talking senior industry or you're talking someone with addiction, when you get hit with that, oh my gosh, what do we do? Unfortunately, we don't make great decisions when we're in a panic mode.
Right.
So having this information beforehand so we know what to do and we can handle it in a more patient, loving manner would be absolutely wonderful. So, for both sides, it is good to get connected with this information early.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I love about this Brevard Recovery Fest. This is a fun way. And, that's one of the things we always talk about. Why we jokingly call making an aging plan getting your ducks in a row. We're trying to be a little bit lighthearted so that it's not so intimidating. And that's what I love about what you guys are doing with Brevard Recovery Fest. We're gonna stop that, and we're going to talk about a couple of things on the helping senior side. But I want to ask Laura McCarthy, again, the date, I want you to put this on your calendar, Saturday, September 9th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Wickham Park in Melbourne. It really sounds like a great kind of non-threatening kind of environment to come out and get this information. But I also wanted to ask you, because you mentioned your book, you mentioned some of these classes. Suppose somebody is hearing what we're talking about and they say, oh, I want to read Laura's book, or I want to find out more about these classes about intervention. How do you want people to reach you and find out more?
So the website is brevardrecoveryfest.org, and there is a contact us section at the bottom, as well as my phone number and our co-chair, Bart Donito, who can obviously help with any of this information. My book actually is on Audible. It is on Kindle, and it is on Amazon, so you can just certainly research that. I want to make sure that I didn't get misunderstood when I said earlier, you cannot die from withdrawal from fentanyl, but fentanyl poisoning can kill you.
Yeah.
We do have a population of people that are addicted to fentanyl. They have reached that highest level of addiction and craving, and they are using fentanyl on a daily basis to maintain an addiction. So I just want to be clear, though, poisoning is deadly.
Yeah.
Withdrawal doesn't have to be.
Okay. So such important information. Again, BrevardRecoveryFest.org. I hope you found this part of the conversation helpful. I mean, every family that I've ever run into has had this someplace. Maybe it's an uncle, maybe it's a relative in the family, or like, we were talking about earlier, it could be just a really good friend and you're very concerned for all that. So this is so important, Brevard Recovery Fest. So we're going to shift and we're going to talk just for a minute about some helping senior stuff. Although, Laura, you're free to jump in because we're going to talk a little bit about Helping Seniors Brevard is a nonprofit. I think we mentioned at the top of the show that this afternoon, if you're out and about, you're welcome to drop by the Senior Resource Center Brevard there in the Omni Healthcare Building, the Professional Tower right there, 1344 South Apollo Drive. Come to the second floor and you'll see all the festivity. They're going to do, the folks from the Greater Palm Bay Chamber are going to be out there with their ribbon cutting. So that's an important thing. I asked you to get a piece of paper so you could jot down a couple of dates. Here's a couple more for you. Saturday, September 23rd, we're going to continue our Palm Bay Senior Renters Program. This is important information that renters who are here in Palm Bay, and why it's important for Palm Bay is because funding for this is provided through the City of Palm Bay CDBG funds. And so they've made this program available that we actually work together with a HUD certified counselor, one of 3,500, only 3,500 in the country. Her name is Vinnie Richardson. She's with an organization called Christian Housing Ministry, and her passion is particularly to help make sure seniors aren't facing homelessness. So this program is an education in partnership with the Florida Bar's Florida Eviction Prevention Program. And we had a very good session actually this past Saturday with a lot of folks who came out. We meet in the morning over at Mima's breakfast for breakfast right over there at right there on Babcock Street. And we had attorney Frank Scaglione who took questions and presented, but took a lot of questions from people who have a lot of things, because the number one call that we seem to get on the Senior Information Helpline is about housing challenges for seniors, and particularly renters who are facing exorbitant rent increases as the market is going up. It's pushing them out. So this is important that you know. But the next time this is going to be offered, and seating is very, very limited. It is free if you qualify, meaning that you have to be a senior, you have to be a renter, and you have to live in Palm Bay, because that's how this particular program is set up. But give us a call at 321-473-7770 if you're interested in that. Now, on to the fun, the Helping Seniors Car Raffle. This is fun, but it's serious, because it's your opportunity to help support the work of the Helping Seniors of Brevard organization. This literally is about half of our funding for the entire year. People just assume nonprofits, and I know you know this, people just assume that there's just bushels of money through grants and stuff. She's shaking her head going, no, I don't think so. It's tough. If you're a nonprofit, you exist for one reason, and that's to serve the public. But getting that help to keep yourself going is oftentimes a challenge. And so one of the ways that Joe came up with years ago with his good friend AJ Hires with the Boniface Hires car dealerships, it's how he built or helped build those Joe's Clubs, and he's carried it over to what we do now. This is our 7th annual Helping Seniors Car Raffle. So AJ steps up and says, yeah, sure, I'll get you guys a car. The winner can pick whatever car they want from our dealership. So we give them a choice of 5 representing each one of them. One of them is the Dodge Challenger, Jennifer Barton.
Of course it is. I got to be at Dodge last Saturday, and we did a little barbecue, our Dodge Challenger celebration, and got to see AJ, which was really nice, because we got to say thank you for all of the good work that he has done in helping us. So that was a lot of fun, and I got to drive Darren's personal Dodge Challenger, our crew chief Darren, up at Boniface Hires Dodge Jeep. Chrysler,
all
everything.
Those words.
And that was just so much fun. That was the highlight of my Saturday, was getting to drive his vehicle, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Because it's a little bit of a souped up model from the base model, but gorgeous car. And of course, the Dodge Challenger is one of the cars that you can win. Yes. And of course, in my humble opinion, the best choice during that raffle.
Yeah, well, another car that's in there.
Tell us how to sign up for this, because I want to sign up for this.
I'm getting there. But so here's the story. So when this first came up some years back, Jennifer Barton, who's on the board, she said, I'm all about, there is no other car. Even though there's 5 cars you can choose for, there's no other car than the Dodge. Another one of our board members, Ashley Caswell, came the opposite direction. She said, no, not the Dodge. It's all about the Chevy Camaro. So they squared off and said Dodge versus Chevy. And so the first year, we called up Mark Pylock, the owner of the American Muscle Car Museum, and said, could the ladies come down and run the cars out on your test track and kind of see if they can, battle this and see who is better? And he said, sure. So we went out there and we filmed that. It's called Dodge v Chevy, and you got to check it out, dodgevchevychallenge.com. So the end of the story is they couldn't agree. Dodge stayed Dodge, Chevy stayed Chevy. So we had a rematch. And then last year we had a 3rd round, and we just finished up filming the 4th round. And let me just say, it got a little wild to the point that Sheriff Ivy had to step in. So you'll have to look for that coming up.
There may have been a bleep or two in that footage.
I'm just saying. So you can win a Dodge Challenger, Chevy Camaro. You could also take a Mazda Miata. You could also take a Kia Sportage or a Mitsubishi Outlander. It's going to be your choice when we pull your winning ticket. This all winds up Saturday, October 7th at the American Muscle Car Museum. And when you get your Helping Seniors ticket, you get to come into the museum that night. You do not have to be present to win. So if you happen to be, on a cruise in the Bahamas or something like that, it's fine. You can watch it on Facebook Live. But if you're there, your ticket allows you to come into Mark's amazing collection. He's got, what did he tell us, 435 cars now or something crazy this year? It's
well over 400. We got to go into the museum a few days ago to do a little bit of filming, and there are definitely more 2 tiers. There's more in the middle. It's just amazing. That museum is amazing.
So even if you were there last year, it doesn't matter, because the collection has grown by another 10%, because I think they told us about 400 cars last year.
And they do move things around because there was a car there that a number of us said, I don't remember that from last year. And Ed laughed. He says, no, that was here. But they do move things around. So it kind of brought on a new life for that vehicle.
Yeah, and Mark springs for everything, by the way. So when you show up, it's not only that you get to go through his museum, but he springs for beer, wine, soda, everything. So he puts snacks out, so there's always great stuff to eat: pizza, sandwiches, cookies. So I always go, you can't make a donation of $100 to an organization where you get to go to the museum. You could drive home in a new car. You can't take that same $100 and go for pizza and a movie for 5 people. It just doesn't work. So how do you get tickets? Jennifer Barton, answer the question.
You can go to helpingseniors.carraffle.com
Yes.
and buy them online. You can call and talk to, right now, it would be Miss Karen at the office at 321-473-7770. You can stop by the Senior Resource Center, 1344 South Apollo, and we will sell you a ticket. You can come by the grand opening tonight. We'll be selling tickets. You can get tickets right up until that evening. So October 7th, you can come in, buy some additional tickets so that you can be in it to win it,
So
as
Laura's
Kerry Fink
going to get
says.
tickets, but which car would you take? Do you have a favorite in this?
No, I'm not sure. I want to see all of them. I'm not really familiar with cars that much, so I'd have to take Jennifer's word that the Charger might be the one.
Aha.
Peer pressure.
There you go. Well, that's it. That's the time we have for Helping Seniors Radio today. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found this useful and helpful. So on behalf of our founder and president, Joe Steckler, our entire Helping Seniors team, we'll see you next Wednesday right back here on the radio.